All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about what I believe to be the best 3D Mortal Kombat game ever, and that is Mortal Kombat Deception, and for a multitude of reasons. So let's take a little bit of a trip down memory lane, shall we? In the year of 2004, when this game released. And I still remember my experience to this day. It was a game that I was highly anticipating, because I actually really did enjoy Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, despite the fact that it had its fair share of problems here and there. But for the most part, it was a successful Mortal Kombat game, and I really like the difference in terms of what they brought to the table, especially back in the day when this actually happened, which was 2002, when that game was released. And fast forward 2 years later to Mortal Kombat Deception, and they really, in my opinion, went above and beyond. One of the things that over the years that NetherRealm, formerly known as Midway, when Mortal Kombat Deception was out, is that they would really go above and beyond for the majority of their games in terms of content. And in my opinion, Mortal Kombat Deception is one of the greatest examples that you could possibly have in a video game, let alone a fighting game, that literally depicts this. But it's not just because of the amount of content, but it's also because that everything that was wrong the first time around was pretty much all but gone for the most part, and everything just felt better, everything just looked better, everything just played better. There was a ton of conquest, and at the same time, there was one thing that stood out to me that I back then didn't appreciate as much as I do now, or should I say appreciate as much as I do now in recent times, and that's the Conquest mode. We're going to be getting that into a little bit, but first I want to say that obviously the first thing right off the bat, I got to mention a few of the other things about the game as well. Right off the bat, it was a really big shock to when I got home, when I picked up the game. I was hanging out with my friends that day, and I actually played the game for the first time at my friend's house before going home later on that night and playing it on my own and grinding the hell out of it. And it was a really big shock to my friends and I that where the story had been, because, well, usually the good guys always win. In the beginning of Mortal Kombat Deception, it was revealed that they didn't. According to the words of Shujinko, Raiden's Earthrealm warriors had failed to stop the Deadly Alliance from fully resurrecting the mummified army of the Dragon King. So all of a sudden, that just changed the tone. And my friend and I specifically looked at each other like, what? And then, of course, you had that badass opening cutscene. And then after that, the game would just start, and you'd get in there and you play, and then you realize there's just a ton of things to do and a ton of content. Everything from the characters, the fatalities, the additional fatalities. The developers obviously didn't have to worry about creating a new engine from scratch like they did in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, which was something that was obviously very time consuming. And that's one thing I've noticed about a multitude of games in general, is that whenever you're creating a new engine from a game from scratch, that is going to take so much time in the development stage. And if you weren't doing that, you could probably easily shave off at least, I'd probably say, a year of development time. And I know this was a while ago, so games didn't take quite as long back then as they do now, or actually they started to actually take quite a while. And the thing is that everything was just refined, perfected to the best way possible in the year of 2004. And they decided to take all that extra time and just give us a whole bunch of content. Now, we obviously had things like puzzle fighter combat, chess fighter combat, which was great. You had the regular arcade ladder, and the endings and stuff like that. You had the crypt as well. But the one thing that stood out, and that wasn't very well received, by the way, right? It wasn't very well received by the video reviewers back then from places like, I think, GameSpot or whatever. I mean, the whole game did rate really high. I think it was like an 8.4 or an 8.6, which is really, really high. But one of the things that people were shitting on in terms of, the reviewers from there was the Conquest mode. But the Conquest mode was actually something that a lot of players came to appreciate later on, despite the fact that it was a very bare bones thing, and obviously graphically didn't look as good as the rest of the game. Obviously, it was something that the developers just decided to put into the game and to give us a whole bunch of extra content. And the one thing I will say, though, there is one thing that I will say in terms of what the reviewers were right about, was that you were forced to play Conquest in order to unlock the best stuff in the game, unfortunately, right? But for those of us that actually liked Conquest and were able to dive in deep and just accept it for what it was, It was quite a good time, actually, despite the fact that it was very bare bones. It was kind of like its own very bare bones RPG with all the different characters in the Mortal Kombat lore that you could find in there at any given point, searching for a treasure chest, doing a whole bunch of training aspects and stuff like that, which was what Conquest was in Deadly Alliance, but they kind of expanded on it in Deception, trying to find, treasure and certain artifacts called the Kamidogu. You had all the different realms to explore. You didn't just have the what's it called? You didn't just have the one realm to explore. You finally had all the different realms that you never seen before to explore. You had Earth Realm, obviously. You had Edenia. You had the Nether Realm. You had Outworld. You had Chaos Realm. And you had Order Realm. So 6 different worlds to go and explore whenever you want. And there were certain times where you could meditate to speed up time in order to get to be at a certain spot at a very certain specific time in order for a chest to appear out of thin air, literally, so that way you can get something very unique that's in there, things like that. So even back then in 2004, I can assure you, as me being one of these people, I was looking stuff up online in terms of where to find certain things. And I think 2005 is when YouTube came to be. So this was even before the YouTube times. This was to where you were looking things up on, Cheat Code Central or GameFAQs or something like that. And you'd look up blogs and stuff like that. And that's when you would usually find your answers. And for the longest time, I never used YouTube for anything in gaming up until I think, the late, I'd say 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And then obviously that's when YouTube and gaming was obviously for a while it was a big hit, but I just didn't know about it. So until then. And I have to say that Mortal Kombat Deception, from everything that game offers, from a story perspective, from the characters, from the finishers, the fatalities. I mean, Harakiri's, which by the way, we still haven't seen ever since Mortal Kombat Deception. What a Harakiri is, it's a self fatality or basically that you can do on yourself. Like, let's say it's finish him and, you want to try to input your finisher before theirs, and the character finishes themselves off in a very, more often than not, comedic, yet still gory type of way. And ever since then, it's something we really haven't seen in Mortal Kombat, and which is a shame because there's been so many other variations of finishers that we have that have been brought back in current Mortal Kombats, but Harakiri's have not. So hopefully, in the next Mortal Kombat, which is probably going to be called Mortal Kombat 2, if they do that, then obviously I think that would be a way to go. So, I mean, they've brought back Animalities, so it's like, okay, let's bring back Harakiri's, shall we? But yeah, Mortal Kombat Deception literally was the total package, and it was the first of many Mortal Kombats would be the total package. And to this day, in my opinion, Mortal Kombat Deception has not only aged very well, but it really does show you to this day, the amount of content that this game provided 21 years ago. Holy crap. Wow. Is really quite impressive to this very day. And another thing that we haven't seen is we haven't seen puzzle combat or chess combat come back in a while. And obviously we haven't seen a conquest mode like this brought back since the next game, which was Armageddon. But it wasn't as for some reason a lot of people just didn't like that one, despite the fact that it was a little bit more a little bit less bare bones. That obviously people preferred, from what I remember, people preferred the conquest mode that we got in Deception over the one that we got in Armageddon, partially because with Armageddon it was like a linear experience, and with Deception it was pretty much, hey, go wherever you want when you want. And that's one of the essential pieces to when it comes to a bare bones RPG or just RPGs in general. That's one of the absolutely it's absolutely something that's essential. So hopefully one day, and people have been talking about this, hopefully one day in a future Mortal Kombat game, we get basically just a full-on conquest mode that's like your action RPG with, the Mortal Kombat flavor thrown in there, obviously, to make it unique within itself, to where you can create your own character. You can run into every single Mortal Kombat character that's been in the lore ever since the beginning, and you could do your exploring, you can do all that kind of stuff, and and have your own story or whatnot. Hell, I would love a reimagining of the story of Mortal Kombat's 1, 2, and 3, but in the form of an RPG. But we kind of had that, even though it wasn't in the form of an RPG, with Mortal Kombat 2011, also known as Mortal Kombat 9, in terms of a retelling of the first 3 games. But even in a futuristic type of game or whatever, or something that just exists between tournaments or something, whatever it is, I personally would love to see it. And I know from a Mortal Kombat fan standpoint that I'm not the only one. And I think even people that love the genre of RPGs, I think those guys would also be people that would really just try the game out. There are people out there that all they do is play RPGs and they don't care where it is, what the franchise is, whatever. They're just into RPGs. So for Mortal Kombat to actually completely just dive right on in, as opposed to dipping its toes like it did in Deception and Armageddon in this type of genre, I think would be something that is very well welcomed. And if you look at Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, which came out, I believe, 2 years after Mortal Kombat Deception, well, it's basically a full-on action game. It's an action beat 'em up game that you can co-op, and it's basically Mortal Kombat 2 in the version of an action beat 'em up type of game that has all the uniqueness and bells and whistles that you would expect from a Mortal Kombat game, including the ridiculousness and some funny ways to where they can dish out the kind of violence and the gore that Mortal Kombat is known for. So if they did it back then, they can sure as hell do it now. But yet, if they go all the way, I think NetherRealm can provide something that's very, very interesting. Whether they take the route of an action-adventure game like a Shaolin Monks sequel, which a lot of fans have been asking for as well, or from a Mortal Kombat Conquest from the ground up, full-on RPG, action RPG, or whatever they want to do it, and just let fans just go wild with it. I think a lot of people would really receive that very well. So with that being said, guys, I want to know in the comments section, what do you think? Would you guys like to see a full-on Mortal Kombat Conquest mode in the form of an RPG made by NetherRealm, or would you rather see a Shaolin Monks sequel, or both? And do you also agree in terms of the best 3D Mortal Kombat ever made, going to the winner that is Mortal Kombat Deception? I really like to know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.